He got frozen. You scared him.
I was gonna say, looks alarmed. Oh.
Well, since he's the host now, but it's supposed to be.
It says you are now, Kamal.
I think we're live. All right. Okay, Tanner, I got the confirmation. Thank you. We are live. Good evening. This is United Medical ACO, Accountable Care Organization. It is our diabetes program, Wednesday Wellness Webinars with Amy Wilcoxon and Donna Gunkel. My name is Kamal Erkan, and I am the chairman of the ACO. And we are gonna go through our regular events. Today actually is a little bit different than our regular topics. So let me actually introduce my, well, Buddy wants to introduce himself. Let me make sure that he's being taken care of first before he makes some accidents. Either he wants food or he needs to go out. So because he's old and grumpy, we don't know what he needs. So, all right. So Amy, we can start with you if you would like to introduce yourself first.
My name is Amy Wilcoxon. I'm a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. So with our diabetes program. And do you want me to introduce the webinars, or you're going to wait until we have the PowerPoint?
Donna, we can continue with her.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Gunkel, and I'm the Director of Clinical Integration, and I oversee our wellness programs, including our diabetes nutrition education program.
All right. So what I'll do right now, I'm going to go ahead and share our PowerPoint, and then Amy can introduce our other members in the program. Okay.
So in addition to Kamal and Donna and myself, our program coordinator is Dr. Hundal with First Aid Endocrinology. We also have Tim McHugh, who's a physical therapist, and our social worker, Jackie Tomasetti. Now, all part of our diabetes wellness program team. And now the second Wednesday of the month, because we've changed our calendar a little bit, we have our Wellness Wednesday webinar program where we talk about all aspects of diabetes. So how it affects your heart and your kidneys and your feet and all parts of your body. But today, as Kamal mentioned, we are changing avenues a little bit. So we're going to be talking about nutrition, but in a little bit of a different and exciting way. So our panelists today, we have Kamal and myself and Donna, talking all about the benefits of home gardens. So what can growing your own food do for diabetes? And we have some examples and everything to show. So I'm excited. I know they're excited to show all the fruits of their labor. So why should you grow your own vegetables? And we can see some nice screens there. Because if you're growing them outside, you're more likely to eat them. If you have picky eaters in your house, we know that the process of growing is to make them more likely to try them. You have to go outside to plant, to dig, to water. So you spend more time outside. Gardening is exercise. If you know about the blue zones, studies of the world where the people live the longest, their exercise tends to be an activity that they love doing. And gardening is a big one of them, spending time with the land. There is a lot of research about being outside and the effect on your mental health. So gardening is generally outside, unless of course you have a greenhouse. You can control the pesticides. You can control if you're worried about organic food. You're managing exactly what goes on this food. And then nutrients. So if you buy something, if you buy peppers, let's say, at the grocery store and they've come from California, the nutrients start dying off basically as soon as it's cut from the vine. So if you have something that's to travel all the way across the country, you don't have as much nutrients. But if it's traveling from your backyard, you're getting almost 100% of those. So what if we can jump in, and I'll let one of you choose, whoever wants to go first. What made you both decide to grow your own vegetables?
So I'm gonna need 5 seconds before I answer my question, but I do my answer for 1 second because I cannot hear well without the headphones on. And I just got one of them. Let me just see if I can hear you guys so I can answer the correct question. Okay, can you say something?
Okay, so my question was, what made you decide to grow your own vegetables?
No, I heard the question, but we didn't connect. So I'm gonna try one more time. Okay. All right. So, all right. Can we press it one more time?
You just want to do something. Can you hear us now?
Okay, it should happen now.
Okay. Can you hear us now, Kamal? Oh, I think you can.
Okay. Yeah, it's
I
much
heard
better.
it change, so I thought that might be it.
Oh, yeah, like, you know, as we are aging a little bit, so it's almost impossible to hear. So, and Apple doesn't pay us anything for, and this is not part of the garden, right? So, all right, so the question is, why are we doing the gardening?
What made you decide to grow your own vegetables?
Well, so Donna, you want to go first while I'm thinking my answer?
Sure, I will. And if you want to advance one slide, Kamal, I can talk through a couple of.
And who's this one? These are real pictures, right? These are pictures. This is from Donna, or
no, that's not from mine. I think
that's not from one of ours. That's somebody else.
Okay, then this is a fake picture. Then okay, so I'll tell you when it's a real one.
Yeah, I think yes, that one is. So what made me grow my own garden is growing up, we had a large garden. My mom grew up on a farm. So when she was growing up, they grew pretty much, you know, everything in the summer, from potatoes to lima beans, corn. And so when I was growing up at my house, we also had a very large garden. We grew tomatoes and peppers and onions. We actually grew our own potatoes, and when we harvested them, we kept them, you know, in a cool, dark place underneath the house in the crawl space. We had turnips, pretty much everything, corn on the cob. So, you know, it's something I enjoy because, again, like you said, Amy, I think fresh vegetables just have a much better taste. So that's why we did it. And the first picture we're looking at is actually my daughter's backyard garden. This is her first year, so she's carrying on the tradition. The top box, you can see barely some plants in there. So she got that garden box for her birthday and decided she wanted to start her own garden. So in the lower screen, you'll see her cucumbers are doing very well. She's already had quite a few. In fact, I've had several myself that I put in my salads every day for lunch. She's growing peppers, butter lettuce, which she's been using. They've made BLTs and some other sandwiches. So she's been using that. They have peppers, tomatoes, and On the very right-hand side, you can barely see it. It's a very small watermelon plant that they started from seed in the house. It has recently started taking off, but I know those come on a little later in the season. So that's kind of a little history of why I wanted to do it. It's kind of passed down from generation to generation, and we enjoy it. We enjoy making things, and I can talk about that a little bit later on. I'll let Kamal talk about why he wanted to grow his own garden.
You're on mute.
So I'm a little bit jet lagged. So, you know, the 3-day Turkey trip just messed me up a little bit. So mine was, I was just thinking about my answer, and then I just couldn't think fast enough. And I'm like, oh my God, my answer is in the fridge. So since I started drinking these, so I have mint, cucumber, and ginger in this. So you need them fresh all the time, except the ginger. I mean, you need the ginger too, but I don't have the ginger in the yard. So for the cucumber and the mint part, I get it from my own yard. So that's how it started. For the mint, I get it almost 9 months out of the 12. And the cucumber is probably six months.
Wow.
So that's how it started. So then it got a little bit bigger than this. So I'm getting a little bit of help, so I'm not going to get all the credit. So then I can be honest, right? So let me see if you guys use any of my pictures. So this is from my new yard. So I try to keep them in these types of containers. And next year I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I think the organizing them in a certain way, it does help. I don't want to actually just have, I don't want to have it on the open ground. So this does, at least for me, it kind of, you know, keeps it clean. Now this was in the beginning. Now these things are kind of like this morning. So Amy, you should be proud of me. I got up at like 10:06. See if you guys used any of them. Okay, so this is from this morning. This red one, the tomatoes.
Look at that.
And I don't know if these are the same ones. So the one in the middle and this one, but what's amazing is like you can actually see the whole progress. And you probably appreciate it a little bit more. This is from my own. So this picture on the bottom here, this is from this morning. All the red ones, I picked them up this morning.
Wow.
And sometimes you don't realize how many you have until you kind of get in there, and then that's what happened this morning. So, and let me see if you have.
That's from
So
mine
this is-
from this
yeah.
morning after I
Yeah,
went
I was
out
gonna
last
say.
night at 8 p.m. and pulled all the weeds. So these are from my garden. Now I do mine a little differently. We do have a designated space. So it is built up in a box and you can see it around there, but we do plant everything. So we add, usually every year we add new soil, we till it up and you know, and get it ready to go for the year. And then we plant. So here on the far left, you'll see we usually plant 3 different types of peppers. Green pepper, we make stuffed peppers. I like to eat them just, you know, cut up in my salad, but we also, and you pointed this out earlier, Amy, I also cut them up in strips and put them in the freezer so that we have them throughout the winter. And I don't have to buy them, but I have them when I make chili and other things. They're not, at least I haven't found they're very good if you just thaw them out to eat them. But they're very good when you're using them to cook with. So I usually freeze a lot of them so that I have them to use throughout the winter. The jalapenos we use in various recipes. I put some of them in the freezer as well, but we also like to make the jalapeno poppers during football season. So we usually start getting a really good crop in September and October, and we plant poblanos as well. Zucchini is my favorite vegetable. I make homemade zucchini bread, but I also like to do, you know, any type of zucchini. I do them on the grill. I also slice them in the round slices and use them as like little pizzas. So I'll put them in the oven with a little olive oil for about 5 or 6 minutes to soften them up. Take them out and put pizza sauce, a little bit of mozzarella, and then you can put any other toppings you want. So they're a healthier alternative to pizza, but you still get the cheese and the sauce. And then on the right, you'll see our huge onions in the front. And then we have our tomato plant, and then kind of off in the back, we have the cucumbers. So,
so from your your yard, we're going to go back to mine. So those tomatoes in the beginning. So I'm going to just go back for a second. So this was in the beginning. So these tomatoes, just remember these red ones here, the red pot here is the same one right here.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
so they're out of control, obviously. So these are the peppers, green peppers, and that's the same pepper here. So on the left side, these guys here. So you can see the tomatoes on the back. You see? I'm sorry. Those are my strawberries. On the back. So I wasn't able to eat the strawberries. Those are for the birds. They were able to get them. So, but
they like the strawberries too.
Yeah, I think they do. So between the tomatoes and the peppers, just if you can see the progress in like maybe 2 months, could I do this? Could I have done this better? Yes. So if I did the timing a little bit better, so if I could maybe start earlier and then just have a little bit better timing, and if I do plant, Donna, maybe you may have a little bit more experience in this. Like my brother-in-law, he does it really well. Like you can actually get more produce in time and in the I think like with better frequency, I guess. Right. So like every 6-7 weeks, you can get similar amount of tomatoes or cucumber or peppers. So there are some ways to set it up, and it's not too complicated. You just need to prepare the year before. The problem is with the 4 season, we forget that's coming, next year. So, but I'm going to actually do a better job next year. So now, one of the really signature vegetable for my yard is the eggplant. Now, I was trying to see if I had one of those giant eggplants in the house, and I don't anymore. So this is the organic eggplant. It's like a normal, humane size. It's not like one of those, giant. So this is what it looks like normally. Let me see if I have. There was a different picture, but I mean you can get an idea, right? So like this is almost unreal, but I didn't have to do anything specific for this. So this is it just happened on its own. And it's you can actually get more. I mean, I wasn't doing it to feed myself all summer, but I was just doing it just enough to kind of taste it. So, but there's enough stuff. So, I mean, here's how it is this morning again. Like one of the other problems that I had, and I apologize the way that it looks. I was going to get the stonework done this May, and then the guy never showed up. So the way with the COVID and the contractors in the United States, so he never showed up. He was going to be here in the second week of May. But these are the cucumbers, and they're coming out now. And then these 3 are here, the strawberries. And that is pretty much what I have.
I think with like the peppers, and you were talking about, continuing the crops. I know with us, usually the tomatoes, I mean, usually if you keep them, picked when they're ripe, or sometimes with some of my tomatoes, it's one of those things, if a heavy rain is coming, I'll sometimes pick tomatoes a little before they're ripe, and I'll put them, like in a windowsill to finish ripening, because usually a heavy rain will cause them to split, and then they aren't as pretty, or you might not want to eat them. It depends. If you're not right there, then they can start getting bugs and stuff. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. But usually once the tomatoes come on, we find that we get them, and they just become very plentiful. And you just have to get out there every couple of days, like with our cherry tomato and our grape tomatoes, because they're smaller, so they turn red faster, to get out there and pick them. I'll put them, wash them and put them in just a bowl in the refrigerator. And my husband eats them, like they're candy. He'll just go in there and grab a handful of cherry tomatoes. I use them on salads. You can, use them on pizzas and things of that nature. And then the peppers, we usually find it takes them a little longer to come on. But then once they do, again, I find that we start getting more through August, September, and October, unless, of course, you get an early frost. Then sometimes they kind of slow down.
So sometimes when you don't know what to do with it, you can go with these two. A lot of different dish that we have, like, if you don't know what to do with the zucchini and the eggplants, with the bell peppers. So there are a lot of good Mediterranean or the Turkish style. You can go or the Greek. So these two books, they're very, there are a lot of different variety and pretty healthy. I mean, I didn't run it by Amy. I hope she won't yell at me later on.
Sometimes you got to watch the amount of oil, but for the most part, yes, very healthy.
It's olive oil. Olive oil is not oil.
Still, you don't want tons of it. So even though, yes, it's a good oil.
So like my mom doesn't think that, like, if you're a vegetarian, you can still eat lamb. So, so it's lamb, like, it's fine.
So how are you all both doing in the heat? How are your plants doing in this heavy or this hot weather?
We have to remember watering them, and then I try to do that at night, but I do have someone helping me during the daytime. And well, Isabel, so she does more than I do, honestly. Okay, I'm not gonna even pretend. So she's so great. So she does a lot of the work, but I do enjoy doing it as well. Like this morning, really, I did tie them up in different directions, so then because they were getting really heavy, and if you don't separate them, they're not getting enough sun, especially with tomatoes. But we have to remember just watering them, otherwise they're going to get dry. That's why that part I do it. So because you have to kind of really do it at night, so that they get enough water. Otherwise they will. If it's the sunlight, the daylight, so it won't get enough water.
So I would imagine Donna has like absorbed this growing up, but Kamal, this is new for you this year and last year. So how did you know that you had to stake them and tie them up? Did you?
No. I mean, like my dad does. Like we do have stuff back home.
So also
I'm just not interested much, like, on the labor part of it. I was just watching from a distance. So, and I do it actually more than a couple of years. So in the other house, I was doing it as well. Okay. So actually, mint was coming from that other house. But it's been maybe 6-7 years.
So it's been a long time. Okay, because it does.
Like part that, like, especially if, I don't have kids, but for those who have kids, I think it would be great for them to have it, because many kids, they really don't know where these things are coming from, and they kind of learn. I mean, you probably appreciate more where these things are coming from. So that they are actually just throwing out these things, or maybe just not appreciating much, like how long it takes to get one tomato, like those eggplants. Sometimes I just don't want to eat them. I'm like, they're like too pretty to look at, and it takes like several months to get them. So, like, honestly, you do have that appreciation part of it. So I think it's important to have that connection. Like, why do you just consume? Like, so I think maybe getting back to what we do with our population, so just consume. Part of it is because we don't really have the good understanding of where it's coming from and how easily we can actually get it. So actually, it's not that easy to get it. It takes several months to get it. So when you see that process, perhaps we can maybe slow down a little bit.
That's a good point. One of the things that we know from research that cultures that do well with sort of healthier, more normal eating is when they sit down to eat, they stop, and whether it's grace or some sort of word of thanks, or they appreciate their food and where it's coming from. And you're absolutely right. Gardening is another way to do that, because it's a lot. I mean, Donna, I looked at the size of your plot. It's a lot of work and weeding. It's
Yes, at 8 p.m. But I did want to just jump in real quick when you were asking about the watering. So, usually they always say, to Kamal's point, either very early in the morning or in the evening. You don't want to do it in the heat of the day. So one thing that, especially on these really hot 90-degree days, because ours is all in one big box, so to speak, my husband has set up, it looks like a big tripod, and he runs the hose out there. And so it's on a timer. So it usually, on the really hot days, he has it set up where it will water the whole garden for like 10 minutes every morning. If it's going to rain, he'll turn it off. If it's not going to rain for several days, it will come on and water the whole garden for 10 minutes. And then in the evening, when the sun goes down, we'll usually water it again manually, or he'll have to manually turn it on, but it sits like the hose sits on a tripod. And so it goes around so that it gets the whole vegetable garden.
Wow. And I noticed you have chicken wire too.
Well, that's because, yes, we did that last year because before we would always try to keep it more open, but last year we had to build up the fence because we never usually see too many of the animals, but they're evidence of deer because we see the tracks. And then we have rabbits and squirrels. And so, yes, they were enjoying the fruits of our labor much more than we were. And when they started getting to my zucchini, I'm like, no. So we had to put a fence up to keep them out.
Very smart. Yeah.
So the other thing that I didn't see on the pictures, but I have them. So
yeah, I apologize. I didn't use all of them, Kamal, because I didn't want it to be too long.
Yeah, I have like parsley and the mint. I have. I'm just looking at a couple of the others. They are in a different pot. Like when you have like salad, like it's so like convenient to just get some parsley or some mint and just get it from the yard, and then it's fun. And then getting the smell of the like fresh tomato, just the plant itself, it's a different feeling. It's not like going to ShopRite and then just picking up the tomato.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that homegrown tomatoes have a much, I don't know, the flavor is just so much, more than I find than the ones you buy in the store. Sometimes I find that they, even if they're really red, they just don't have as much flavor as the ones when you're growing them right there in your garden. And then to Amy's point, or your point, Kamal, you can go out, like sometimes we'll be like, oh, what are we having for dinner? Oh, okay, we're going to have this. So let me walk out to the garden, grab a tomato. You come in and you freshly, slice it and eat it within, minutes of pulling it, from the garden. And one of the things, I think this is on one of your later slides, but while we're talking about being able to do that, one year we wanted to make, it's a salsa, but it looks more like a bruschetta. It's a very thick salsa. And so it used green pepper and jalapeno and onion and tomatoes. And I think it was cilantro. Our cilantro, the timing didn't quite work out. Our cilantro had gone to seed before everything else came on. But our goal was to make the salsa from as much, from our garden as we could without having to go out and get produce, from the store.
Which is great. I mean, you have so much fresh nutrition. Like you said, the flavor is so much better. And then I think you can appreciate it even more because you did everything, especially when you're growing things from seed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and it doesn't take that much. That's the other thing, like once you do it. So I'm going to just share this picture with you guys. So, like you see here, like, I think this is rosemary here on the back.
Oh, wow. And I love the little wagons.
Yeah, they're cute. And I think I have like 2 sets of these. So they're pretty cool. All right, so now, do you want to go back to the PowerPoint then?
Yeah, because I think
we do have a lot more.
All right, so
I think you want to go back a
Go
little
back, yeah, go back a few.
to right after the pictures of the plants. I think we have a few.
Okay, there, yep, and then,
To get started.
okay, so go
it
one
looks
more.
pretty bad. Like when I look at it from now, this morning it didn't look that bad. After I was like dying from the sweat, like I'm like, oh my God, like
It
it's
looks
7 in the
good. You
morning.
can see there's a lot of work out there.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks really great.
I think you guys are lying. That's okay.
No.
Thank you, though.
So how to get to, when you think about wanting to grow a garden, so you think about the seasons, the weather, as Kamal and Donna were both talking about. And if you're going to start from seed, you have to start even earlier. So usually, like Donna talked about, her daughter started her watermelon seeds inside. I start all my seeds inside an egg carton and then transplant them once they sprout into bigger containers outside. So I don't grow tomatoes because I know this is blasphemy. I only like the little tomatoes, which I should start growing. For a long time, I didn't like tomatoes at all. So I only grow the vegetables I really like to eat. I did try and grow carrots one year because my son really likes them. And there's something really cool about growing root vegetables. I think for kids too, to see that they come out of the ground. You only see the green part up top. So if you're not sure what to grow, talk to people you know who grow things, or look up online, or go to the nursery, go to the gardening store and look to see what do they have. Even Home Depot sells plants, go there. So these are my little herbs on my deck, because I'm sorry to say all I grew this year were herbs and strawberries and flowers. That's it. So there's my rosemary. My rosemary looks kind of fried. It was really hot. I think I took that picture in the middle of the afternoon. And there's my basil, which always grows like crazy every year. And now it's huge. I need to make something with it. So a really good thing about herbs, having them, and you can also bring them inside. My rosemary lasts outside all winter. It's really, really hard to kill for some reason, unless it's really cold. My basil comes inside and doesn't always make it. But if you're really looking to cut your salt, you got high blood pressure, this is a really good way to do it. And there, I mean, fresh basil, there's nothing like it. I get some complaints sometimes from my child about, oh, the whole house smells like that basil when I come inside with it, but I think it's a great smell. So whatever, again, going back to that, whatever you like. So whatever flavors that you like. I used to grow thyme every year and I like thyme, but it grows so much I couldn't use it all because you don't need a ton of it. I used to grow mint, which is great, but it grew so much, which I could keep using mint, but I don't know, I stopped growing it for some reason. So we can go to the next one. Thank you. So what do you need? So plan the type, and you might want to start small if you've never done this before. So as I was asking both of them, how do you know if you need stakes, tying them up? My parents always grew things, but because I was adverse to tomatoes for years, I would have had no idea that you had to tie them up. I grew my eggplant. When it grew this beautiful flower, I was like, wow, whoa, look at this. Who knew it grew such beautiful flowers before the eggplant grew? And when I first tried to plant peppers, I didn't know until my first pepper didn't grow. And then I learned that you need 2 peppers at least, and ideally a male and a female pepper because they have to pollinate off of each other. The one pepper doesn't grow alone. Same with my blueberry bush. And in our area, if you have a blueberry bush, you should get a net because otherwise the birds will eat them before you do. Or squirrels, as what have you said. So what else do you need? Think about what kind of garden are you going to grow? I think Donna talked about the soil, so prepping your soil. I know in my yard, we have a lot of clay. So I have to do a lot of tilling of the soil, digging up. In my backyard, it was much better to go with raised beds. I also I back into the woods, so I have a lot of bugs and a lot of shade. So prepping for that too. I have some plants that would not do very well in parts of my yard because there's just not a lot of sun. So planning for that too. If you want to plant in pots, which is the easiest way to start, you gotta have pots, you gotta have potting soil. Gloves. I don't like to do anything without gloves. I don't know about you too. A lot of people swear by mats. If you're doing a lot of weeding, your knees might get really sore. So they make these nice little foam mats to weed on. You definitely need a watering can. And I will give you a hint. Don't leave it outside in the hot sun because it will crack, as mine is now. And when I take it inside to fill it up, it drips water all over my house. And we talked about planning ahead and starting from seed. Did you have either of you have any comments on this before we go to the next slide? No, okay.
No, I think you covered it all.
If you live in the city, if you live in an apartment and you don't have a yard, you live in a condo and you don't have a yard, there are community gardens. There's community gardens all over the country. So you can they're usually free. You just have to buy the stuff that you want to plant. So these are some in our area, Bellevue, Newark, Lewis, down at the beach. And there's information from the extension on starting a community garden, but these are all over the country that you can share. Some of the community gardens, there's also some through churches where you don't keep your fruits and vegetables. They're donated to their food pantry, but it's a nice way to get out there and meet other people. So if you do want to grow things and you don't even have a balcony for pots, well, check into some community gardens in your area and see what you can find. The next slide, please. So popular things that are easy to grow, I think we probably already covered: tomatoes, cucumbers, strawberries, peppers, eggplant, herbs. Ones that require a little bit more space: corn. Donna, are you growing corn now or no?
I don't know. We really don't have the space for corn. I mean, when I was growing up, we had a huge garden, but I don't have that kind of space. I miss it though.
So corn does require less space. Green beans require poles, so they don't require as much space, but they do have poles. You don't have green beans, right?
I do not. No.
Okay. Melons certainly require some space. Pumpkins also, it's really nice. It's really fun too for kids to grow pumpkins. They do come up later. If you've ever been to a pumpkin patch, you know. Root vegetables, these are things you got to plant early. So if you want to grow potatoes, radishes, you have to plant early. Somebody was telling me they wanted to grow asparagus, but they didn't realize it takes a long time. And asparagus is an early spring vegetable. So you have to get started on it early. So if you think, oh, I really, really love asparagus, maybe you want to plant for next year.
So we actually do plant
zucchini.
radishes. I didn't mention that because we plant radishes in front of like where those onions are, huge onions. We plant the radishes because they're a quick, and they come, you can either do the packs of seeds, or my husband usually likes to get it. It's almost like a roll of tape, and then they're evenly spaced. You can just he digs the little trench, and then you just basically roll it out. And we usually grow them. And then because they come on pretty quick, and we pick them, we can usually then do a second planting before everything else starts getting big. So that's one of those things that you can do even if you don't have a lot of space, because they come on quick. So usually before your other vegetables get really big and take over that area, you've already gotten one or two harvestings from that.
And a lot of people are turned off by radishes, but they're really versatile. I was in a CSA this year, which, if you don't know, is community supported agriculture. So you have a share from a farm and you get what you get. So if you're a picky eater, you get to learn to experiment with new foods. So I got a lot of radishes in the beginning, and I'm not always a fan, but I learned that I really like roasted radishes. If they're baby radishes and they're fresh from the farm. They're pretty sweet. So I was okay. And I'm sure Donna, yours are pretty sweet because they're fresh, not from the farm, but from
Yeah,
the
we
yard.
get a variety. Some are pretty, hot and some are a little on the sweeter side. I usually just slice them up and mix them in my salad, so it's a nice extra flavor. In
And
your
they're a
salad.
nice crunch too to do. And they're really, I mean, they have a lot of nutrition in them. They're very low in calories, as are most vegetables. So tomatoes, I see we're on to our tomato slide, and I know we have some big tomato fans here. So there's so much that you can do with tomatoes. When I did have my little tomatoes that I was growing, and I also have my basil, and I have fresh mozzarella, I was making miniature caprese salads on toothpicks. My father's favorite thing growing up every summer was a tomato sandwich. He'd go grab a tomato from the garden, slice it, put it on a sandwich. As Donna said, her husband snack on tomatoes. Just eat them. It's much healthier than candy. Some people like to mix with cottage cheese. You're getting your protein, the vegetable, delicious snack. Roasted tomatoes are fantastic. Adding them to eggs to frittata. So go grab some as you're mixing up your eggs. Salsa, bruschetta, a chopped salad. And one of the things that we always did growing up, because my parents also had a big garden, is to peel them. So I think we had a whole assembly line growing we used to do, and freeze them for the winter. And then instead of buying cans of peeled tomatoes, diced tomatoes, whatever kind of tomatoes you're buying, you have them fresh from your garden. So better for you because you're free. So again, that nutrition, you picked at its peak and then you're freezing it. So it's still going to be healthier because it hasn't been through the canning process. And then you have so much flavor and you can control what's in it. You don't have to add any salt. You can add the spices that you want. You can make soups, chilies, all kinds of things. You want to add anything about tomatoes before we go into our next veggie?
Well, I mean, you can use my tomato pictures and you don't need to put this disclaimer here.
These are before we got yours. I'm sorry. I made mine before I went on vacation. You should have put your tomatoes in. So zucchini. These are, so they're often are plentiful. People, I've never grown them, I'll be honest, but I'm sure Donna can attest. People seem to have bags of them they're trying to give away because there's so many zucchini growing when they come in, the buffer crop. There's so much.
They get big very fast. You can go out there one day and you're like, okay, I'll come back in a couple days and I'll get it. And one day it's like this, and the next, when you go back, you're like, oh my gosh. But those are good because I grate them up for the, and then I can make 4 loaves of zucchini bread out of one huge zucchini. Or to your point, you can spiralize them and do them like the noodles. So I do that sometimes.
Yeah, and then you can shred them. And so you need to squeeze out the water because they're vegetables. So they have a lot of water. You can make zucchini meatballs. You can make zucchini fritters, zucchini muffins. Slice, bake to get the water out, and then instead of using lasagna noodles, put the zucchini in there. You can slice and saute with herbs for a nice summer side. I like to roast them, and I'll roast the tomato and onion, and I roast a big pan of them, and then I might use that in wraps and salads and things like that to have a big extra portion of vegetables. I like everything roasted, and I usually throw garlic. Well, and what is that, Kamal, that you have?
It's zucchini with chermoule dressing. It's probably Italian. 2 tablespoons olive oil, 2 tablespoons butter, 8 zucchini with, so stuff. So we can actually put it up if anyone is interested in. So you can send us a message.
Oh, great.
And one of the things I do too, Amy, I know you were talking about that. Some of the smaller ones, I'll slice it in half and then make them into spears, almost like a pickle spear. Mm-hmm. And we've put them, you can either do olive oil and some different seasonings, or sometimes we've done it with a little bit of Italian dressing and do them in a little boat, not a lot. You just want enough to kind of coat it and give it some flavor, and wrap them up in tin foil and grill them until they're nice and soft. So that's just a different way without adding a lot to it. I do them sometimes. I've done them in spears or the little round ones. I'll put them with a little bit of olive oil, and then you can do it with a Parmesan cheese too, and bake them in the oven.
I've
So
done so like mozzarella sticks, but zucchini sticks. Yeah.
yeah.
You can actually stuff them, stuff zucchinis.
Oh,
Zucchini, yeah. Yeah, I've had stuffed zucchini before. Good.
I have not.
You know,
but
Amy, we should
I
do
did
like
make
a,
stuffed
we
peppers
should do
last night,
cooking.
but I didn't do.
Yes, with the fruit of your labor.
Huh? Yeah,
You know, the
Yeah, they
bounty of your garden. Cook it.
we can. Look, I mean, this is easy.
Kamal's gonna make it and bring it in for us to try.
Excellent. I love it.
As long as you don't have to see it, that's fine. All right, so
So summer lettuce is I think summer lettuce is the best lettuce. So when you have lettuce out of your garden, it almost doesn't even need dressing. It has such a sweet flavor. And I know you said that Jess, your daughter, is growing butter lettuce, which is my favorite summer lettuce because it just has such a flavor. So slightly sweet, delicious. So much different than it. So if you think, oh, what is this person talking about? Crazy, talking about lettuce, try it because it's really good. Lettuce is not like this time of year. This hot July is not a friend to lettuce. So it tends to grow early or late in the summer. But the nice thing about lettuce, when I grow it, I usually grow like a shallow bowl of lettuce. I cut it, I'll eat it, for a couple days, and then it sort of dies off for a while, but then it comes back later in the summer.
Yeah, they say if you leave a few of them in there, because she pulled some off on the outside the other day and used them, and they're good for, you could make the little like the lettuce wraps. You can put the different items in there and make your lettuce wraps.
Yes, if you're avoiding the bread, the lettuce wraps, oh, so good. So then peppers, we talked a lot about peppers. I like to do peppers vegetable stacks. So Donna talked about those. So I'll cut almost like I cut the walls, so the sides off of a big pepper, and then I'll stack it with maybe my zucchini and my basil, parsley, herbs, maybe a little bit of cheese, maybe drizzle if I have like a balsamic glaze over top. That's one of my favorite things to do. I love a chopped salad too. So stuffed peppers, Donna talked about those, ground turkey, brown rice. Mini peppers, if you ever grow those, so you can chop them off and then you can stuff them with chicken salad or tuna salad for a quick lunch. I love roasted peppers. Donna talked about this dicing and freezing them. And Kamal skipped over my peppers, but a big fact there on the bottom. This is important.
this one? Which
When
one?
people have a cold, the last one, when people have a cold, they always think you have to have oranges, but a bell pepper has 8 times the vitamin C of an orange. So think about, eat those bell peppers and they will help strengthen your immune system. So, all right, now you can move on to the next one. Eggplant, which is, I will tell you that eggplant is my all-time favorite vegetable. I love it. So
But this one is an ugly one. We have to update, please.
I'm sorry. You could take it out while we're talking. I know. We didn't have your beautiful eggplant pictures.
Yeah, well, let's do, oops.
So you can roast your eggplant. Baba ganoush, you can make. One of my favorite recipes is you roast eggplant and pepper and onion and garlic. And then you stick it in the food processor and with a little bit of tomato paste. And then you have this beautiful roasted eggplant dip. I think it's a Barefoot Contessa recipe.
I didn't do that deliberately. Do you know that, right?
I know, I'm just trying to remember because you're trying to fix the eggplant picture.
Okay, so.
You can roast an eggplant. So mini pizzas, what I will do is slice the eggplant. So big eggplant from your garden should not be bitter. But it can be. So what you sometimes have to do is put a little bit of salt on it and let it sit, and that will draw out some of that bitter. And that in your home garden, it typically happens if you let it go too long, you pick it too late. It should not happen. You should still have a nice tender one. And you don't have to grow those giant eggplants. I really love those little Japanese eggplants or the little Italian ones. I think they're even better. They're not as seedy. Also, so we think about Italian eggplant, but certainly eggplant. Kamal, there's a lot of Turkish eggplant recipes. My sister-in-law is Persian. There's a lot of Persian eggplant recipes, Lebanese, and there's a lot of Asian eggplant recipes. So saute with onion, bok choy. You can do a peanut sauce. So lots of different uses for eggplant. People are always kind of funny about eggplant when I talk to them. Can you eat the peel? Yes, it's very good for you. It's almost meaty. It's very filling. One of my favorite things to do is just roast the whole eggplant, and it gets mushy and it's delicious. I know, with that offensive looking eggplant, I'm sorry. So other sources for vegetable recipes. There's a website, a blog, a cookbook, Skinny Taste. She's a lot of different vegetable recipes. Cookie and Kate and Love and Lemons are both blogs that are mainly vegetarian or vegan and have a lot of good vegetable recipes. A couple good vegetable cookbooks, the Greens Cookbook, Alice Waters, who is a chef in San Francisco. She's a very good vegetable cookbook. And then Dishing Up the Dirt is a cookbook that I have from a farmer, and she goes through the seasons. And there's a lot of different things when I'm like, what do I do with this rutabaga that I got? So going through, and then if you're really stuck, like, I don't know what to do with my tomatoes, I'm so sick of eating a salad every night with them, Google them. All you have to do is put your ingredients in Google and you can get an answer. So there's a lot of different things that you can do if you don't just even want to eat them plain. So when you talked about cutting up spears with your zucchini, that's one of my favorite things to do with those mini cucumbers is I just cut them in half. Sometimes I'll put everything but the bagels. I have so much. There's also some with dill that don't use sugar. So if you're concerned about the sugar,
Right.
Variation.
Or another one, and I haven't tried this yet, but it was like everything was chopped, but it was like chopped tomato and cucumber and pepper. So it was all, like diced, but it was just like a nice little, and I'm not sure what seasonings it had on it, but I just saw it recently.
Yeah, I like a chop.
I think I pinned it to my Pinterest so I can try it later, but it looked like a nice one again as like a nice little side, summer cool dish.
Thank you both for sharing your garden.
Well, you're welcome. Next time, maybe we'll do a better job. Well, Donna actually borrowed Jessica's garden, right, Donna?
I did.
It wasn't her real one.
I did my garden and her garden. I thought we could show, because I knew you had like a lot of pots and I had the big garden, and I thought we could show like a small, depending on the size of their yard and what they have, that you could do a variety of things. And some of those things with vines, like her garden and our garden, our cucumbers, we have them growing up the lattice in the trellis.
So, I'll tell you, one of the, Amy, like Don and I, we do case conferences every day. So you're probably sick of me by now with me talking about bariatric case conference, but now we started doing our accountable care case conference. So 10 a.m. bariatric, 11 a.m. ACO. So most common issues that we see, diabetes, hypertension, but one of the other, the two others is the obesity and depression. Mm-hmm. So now, as someone who's going through all those different cases with different group of patients, and also understanding what these different perhaps habits that we have, the benefit of these habits, these hobbies that we have, while we are trying to maybe build different goals and we are trying to achieve different goals from these, we may actually have multiple different multiple goals. We can kill multiple birds, although don't kill birds, but you can kill multiple birds with one stone. Because one of the reasons I do this is because I can actually also touch the soil, right? So that actually has a benefit, right? So many people deal with depression, and the whole thing is you actually, if you were able to spend a little bit of time in the nature, you are able to actually probably put that electricity or electric out there, and then it does help. Mm-hmm. So many people who spend too much time inside their home their depression actually, or they may be more depressed, or their anxiety may be more, right? So people who are able to understand their food chain a little bit better while they're actually doing this hobby, and they're able to appreciate the food a little bit better. So you can actually get so many different things, so many different goals. You can achieve different goals in this process. It may be like it may be a small yard. Like I think you can get, I would say maybe 3 by 3 or 4 by 4, 4 feet by 4 feet, or 3 feet by 3 feet, small corner of your yard. You can just designate, and then you can get so much out of it. But you can, the whole thing is, it's not just getting some produce, but you can also get good activity, good habit, good exercise. There are so many different benefits of doing this. And if you have kids, they can also appreciate where these things are coming from. Many kids, they don't even understand where these are coming from. So I think it would be a great way to build some family activity for kids, and or something that you can do by yourself. You don't need someone, or you can do it with someone. So, and you can also share it with your buddy. So I'm enjoying it. So and I'm going to do a better job next year, hopefully, and we can share with others. And thank you.
I think you learn a lot from it. Like you said, it's a way to de-stress even if you're not depressed, but you may have some anxiety, or maybe you just have a lot of stress. It's just an easy way to do something and feel like you're accomplishing something and you're benefiting from it from a health perspective and taking care of something else. So I think you're right. There's a lot of benefits from doing it for both mental and regular nutritional health benefits.
And there's so much research, and I think you can both appreciate this about being outside. So what you talked about, so fresh air, digging in the dirt, and there's even the carbon dioxide, so everything that you're getting from plants. There's so much research that's so good for our mental health, and we are inside so much. So to be out doing that, I spent an hour weeding. That was in my flower bed. And then it was hot and it was terrible on Sunday, but I felt so good. And I'll tell you, it was hard work. My back was tired. But it was such a sense of accomplishment. So not only was it exercise, but I had that great mental, look what I did. My flower bed looks so much better after I pulled all those thistles out.
Yeah.
That's how I was last night before I could take the last picture of my garden, because I went out there and I was like, oh, there's so many weeds. I have to weed this. And then by the time I got done, it was dark. So I had to go take my pictures this morning.
Well, guys, well, this was fun. Thank you for sharing all these. And so our next event is 2 weeks.
So in 2 weeks, we're switching gears a little bit. We start our first support group. So that will be July 28th. And we're going to be talking about handling events in the summer. A lot of people's eating derails with, or in their blood sugar derails with barbecues and graduation parties and summer travels. So that's going to be our support group topic. And please contact us if you have questions about getting signed up. Did you want to chime in there, Donna? You look like
No, I was just wanting to make sure you were going to also mention our next Wednesday Wellness.
And our next webinar will be Wednesday, the August 11th, which will be with Dr. Liquido. We'll be talking about type 2 diabetes in pediatric patients, so in children and teenagers. So we're talking about diagnosis. She'll be talking about diagnosis, diabetes with them in general and treatment, and I'll be talking about what they should be eating, children and teenagers, because it is a little bit different. They're not just little adults, so they're little people with their own needs. So we'll be talking about that as well.
All right, well, thank you again, and we'll see you soon. And until then, please stay safe and stay cool, right? It's too hot out there. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.